The Alpha King froze at one word. Eli. June Callahan stood alone at the center of the royal court, silver restraints cool around her wrists, while hundreds of eyes turned from her to the man on the throne. Everett Hale had not moved when Chancellor Warren Bellamy called her unstable. He had not reacted when nobles whispered that a rejected Omega had invented memories to gain the king's attention. He had barely blinked when Mason Pike, the man who had rejected her, told the court that June had spent years hearing voices no one else could hear. Through all of it, Everett had looked exactly as the kingdom expected its Alpha King to look: calm, cold, untouchable. Then June said that name. His fingers opened. The silver cup in his hand struck the stone floor with a sharp ringing sound that rolled through the hall. Everett rose so quickly that the guards nearest the throne straightened in surprise. June forgot to breathe. She had seen him angry. She had seen him suspicious. She had even seen the brief flashes of doubt he tried to hide when old memories refused to make sense. She had never seen this. Fear. Not the fear of an enemy, something quieter, more personal. The fear of hearing a voice from a room that should have disappeared 27 years ago. "Say it again," Everett said. His voice was low. Bellamy shifted beside the council table. It was a tiny movement, but June caught it. His hand tightened against the edge of the polished wood. "Your Majesty," Bellamy said carefully, "this woman is attempting to manipulate you." Everett did not look at him. His eyes stayed on June. "Say it again." June swallowed. Her head still ached from the hours she had spent locked beneath the courthouse. The burned moon bell rested on the evidence table 10 feet away. Its black and silver surface looked ordinary now, harmless. No one looking at it would guess that a dead woman's voice had been trapped inside it for nearly 3 decades. No one except June. She looked down at the pale crescent pattern carved into the floor beneath her boots. The moon seal. She had seen the same symbol in the sealed archive. She finally understood why Bellamy had been so desperate to stop the investigation before it reached this room. But she did not understand everything. Not yet. "Eli," she repeated. Everett's face lost what little color remained. Somewhere in the gallery, someone whispered the king's name, confused. Another voice asked what Eli meant. Mason stared at June as though she had proved every accusation he had made against her. Bellamy stared at Everett. That was different. Bellamy was not confused. He was watching the king's reaction, measuring it, afraid of it. June felt the last piece slide into place. Bellamy did not know the name. That was why it frightened him. Everett descended one step from the throne, then another. Every wolf in the hall seemed to hold perfectly still. "Who told you that name?" he asked. June looked at the man the entire kingdom believed it knew. The Alpha King. The orphan who had survived Greyhaven, the ruler raised beneath Bellamy's careful guidance. And behind all of those titles, she suddenly saw the 6-year-old boy whose mother had whispered one private name before history erased her. June lifted her chin. "Your mother." Silence swallowed the court. Everett stopped. Bellamy went completely still. And 3 days earlier, before June Callahan knew that one forgotten name could shake a kingdom, she had found a burned silver bell at the bottom of a dusty wooden crate. 3 days earlier, June Callahan stood beneath the carved stone arch of Silver Creek Pack Hall and listened to Mason Pike and the future they had once been promised. The morning air smelled of pine, cold earth, and rain that had not fallen yet. Around them, pack members formed a loose circle, quiet enough that June could hear the faint scrape of Mason's boot against the stone. He would not look at her for long. That hurt more than she expected. "June Callahan," he said, his voice carefully steady. "I reject the recognition bond between us." A murmur moved through the crowd. June felt the bond inside her tighten once, sharp and sudden, then begin to pull apart. She closed her eyes. She did not cry out. She would not give them that. When she opened them again, Mason finally met her gaze. "You know why I have to do this." June almost laughed. Not because anything was funny, because that sentence was somehow worse than the rejection itself. Mason had spent months preparing to compete for a beta position. He had also spent months asking June to stop talking about the voices she sometimes heard when she touched old silver. Pack members called her echo mad when they thought she could not hear them. Mason had started using gentler words, but the meaning was the same. Embarrassing, unstable, risky. "One day you will understand," he said. "This is better for both of us." June held his gaze through the fading pain in her chest. "No," she said softly. "You did it for yours." Then she turned and walked away before anyone could offer pity. By late afternoon, the consequences had already followed her to Blackridge. The Royal Archive Office removed her from the catalog trainee list because rejected Omegas without Alpha sponsorship could not hold certified archive positions under Crown law. June had studied for years to earn that placement. It disappeared in less than 5 minutes. She was offered a lower assignment instead. Relic assistant. Dusting. Sorting. Numbering damaged objects no historian considered important enough to study. June accepted before pride could make the decision for her. Work was still work. A door was still a door, even if someone had tried to close it in her face. The Royal Relic House sat half a mile west of the Crown Citadel, a long gray building filled with shelves, crates, and the dry scent of paper. By evening, June was alone in the main storage room, working through a new shipment from the Greyhaven excavation. Most of it was ordinary debris. Tarnished serving pieces. Bent hinges. Decorative silver too damaged to restore. At the bottom of the final wooden crate lay a small bell, blackened by fire. June paused. Something about it felt wrong. Not dangerous. Familiar. She reached down and brushed her fingers across the cold silver. The room vanished beneath a rush of sound. A woman was breathing hard. Somewhere close, a child whimpered. Then came the soft scrape of fabric and a voice filled with fear, tenderness, and terrible urgency. "Run!" June jerked her hand away. The bell slipped against the packing straw but did not fall. Her heartbeat thudded in her ears. She stared at the object, willing herself to leave it alone. She had promised herself she would stop listening to things no one else believed existed. She had lost enough already. Then the voice came again, faint as breath against glass. One word, a name. Eli. June froze, because this time she had not been touching the bell at all. June did not move for several seconds. The bell sat in the packing straw, dark and silent, yet the name still seemed to hang in the room. Eli. She told herself it had been an echo, nothing more. Her resonance had never behaved like this before, but fear had a way of making ordinary things feel impossible. June forced herself to breathe, then wrapped the bell in a clean cloth and carried it to the catalog desk. If she was going to doubt her own mind, she wanted something solid to doubt it against. The shipping tag listed the object as an unidentified ceremonial bell recovered from the western ruins of Greyhaven Palace. No owner, no date, no royal designation. June frowned. Greyhaven had burned 27 years ago when Alpha King Everett Hale was still a child. Every student in the kingdom knew that much. What bothered her was the symbol engraved inside the bell. 2 thin crescent moons curved toward each other, their tips nearly touching. She searched the public catalog first. Nothing. Then the restoration index. Nothing again. By noon, she found a reference in an older archive ledger stored behind the main desk. The same symbol appeared beside a line marked Private Chapel Inventory. June leaned closer. The next page had been removed. Not damaged, removed. The edge was too clean. Someone had cut it out carefully. A cold uneasiness settled in her stomach. She closed the ledger before anyone walking past could notice what she had found. All afternoon, she tried to focus on ordinary work. Copper buckles, broken picture frames, tarnished serving pieces. But the bell seemed to pull at the edge of her attention. By evening, the relic house had emptied. June should have gone home. Instead, she locked the main storage door, set the bell beneath the desk lamp, and stared at it. "One more time," she whispered. She touched the moon silver. Sound rushed through her. A woman breathing quickly, a child trying not to cry. Somewhere farther away, a door slammed. The woman spoke close to the bell now, her voice shaking but controlled. "Listen to me, Eli. Whatever name they give you after tonight, remember who you are." June tore her hand away. Pain pulsed behind her eyes. Warmth touched her upper lip. She wiped away a small trace of blood and sat very still. This was not random noise. Someone had been hiding a child. Someone had expected his name to change. Then a faint click came from the front room. June looked up. She was supposed to be alone. Footsteps moved between the shelves. Slow, careful. June covered the bell with the cloth just as a man in a dark coat appeared in the doorway. His face was shadowed beneath a hood. He did not look at June. He looked at the desk. "That object belongs to the Crown," he said. June stood. "Then the Crown can send an authorized clerk." The man stepped closer. "Give me the bell." "Show me the order." He did not. Instead, he reached for the wrapped object. June pulled it back and struck the brass alarm mounted beneath the desk. The sound rang through the relic house. The stranger stopped. Voices answered from outside. Royal guards were already crossing the courtyard. The man turned and disappeared through the side entrance before they reached the room. June remained beside the desk, one hand pressed against the cloth, her pulse racing. Less than an hour later, boots sounded again in the corridor. This time, every guard in sight lowered his head. June looked toward the doorway. A tall man dressed in black entered without announcement, silver-gray eyes fixed on the bundle beneath her hand. Alpha King Everett Hale did not ask who had broken into the relic house. He did not ask whether June was hurt. He stared at the burned bell as though he had seen a ghost. Then he looked at her.
"Where did you find that?"
June kept one hand over the cloth covering the bell. "At the bottom of a Greyhaven shipment," she said. Everett Hale stepped farther into the room, and every guard near the doorway seemed to become more careful about breathing. Up close, the Alpha King looked less like the distant figure stamped on coins and more like a man who had not slept enough in years. His silver-gray eyes moved from June to the wrapped object. "Who else touched it?" "No one while I was here." "And the man who came for it?" "He wanted the bell. He did not explain why." Everett glanced toward the guards. "Seal the building. No one removes a single object." His voice was quiet. He did not need to raise it. June noticed that immediately. Power did not seem to make him louder. It made everyone else listen. Before dawn, she was seated across from him in the small interrogation room beside the restoration hall. The moon bell rested on the table between them. No chains, no raised voices. Just the king, June, and a silence that felt heavier with every passing second. "Tell me what happened when you touched it," Everett said. June folded her hands in her lap. "You already decided I am either lying or unstable." "I have decided neither." "Then why am I being questioned like a criminal?" His expression barely changed. "Because someone entered a royal building after midnight to take an object no one was supposed to care about." That answer was reasonable. June disliked that it was reasonable. "I hear things," she said at last. "Not voices around me, impressions, pieces of sound left in certain old objects." Everett did not laugh. That unsettled her more than disbelief would have. "What did you hear?" "A woman, a child." His gaze sharpened. "Where?" "I do not know where she was standing." "Describe what you heard around them." June hesitated, then gave him the fragments she could trust without surrendering the name. A wooden cradle creaking, a window rattling in the wind, a door closing somewhere beyond the room, a woman trying to keep a frightened child quiet. Everett became completely still. June noticed his right hand close slowly against the edge of the table. "What?" she asked. "Nothing." That was not nothing. His eyes lifted to hers. For the first time, the calm looked deliberate rather than natural. Was there anything else? June remembered the private chapel inventory, the missing page, the woman whispering, "Whatever name they give you after tonight." "Yes." Everett waited. June did not continue. I want access to the old Greyhaven records, she said. You are bargaining with the Crown. I am protecting myself from it. A long silence followed. June expected dominance to press against the room. She had felt alpha commands before, the instinctive force that made weaker-ranked wolves want to obey. Everett could have used it. He did not. Instead, he reached into his coat, placed a small key on the table, and pushed it toward her. That opens the sealed archive beneath the east wing. June stared at it. You are giving me access? Under my supervision. And if what I find makes you uncomfortable? A shadow crossed his face. Then I will be uncomfortable. June looked at the key, then at him. Why do you care so much about this bell? Everett was silent for several seconds. Because the room you described should not exist. Her pulse slowed. What do you mean? His voice dropped. I have seen it in dreams since I was 6 years old. June felt the air change between them. She glanced at the bell, suddenly aware that the name she had refused to speak might belong to someone much closer than either of them was ready to admit. Everett rose. We go to the archive now. June picked up the key. Then this time, I asked the questions too. He looked at her for a long moment. Agreed. And for the first time since the bell whispered Eli, June wondered whether the mystery was not hidden inside Greyhaven at all, but inside the king himself. The sealed archive beneath the east wing was colder than June expected. Stone walls pressed close on both sides, and rows of narrow shelves disappeared into the dim light ahead. Everett walked beside her without an escort. He had dismissed the guards at the entrance, then opened the final iron door himself. Only 3 people have access to this level, he said. June glanced at the key in her hand. Now 4. Temporarily. Comforting. For the first time, something almost like amusement touched his face. It vanished quickly. June carried the wrapped moonbell to a long wooden table in the center of the archive. Dust lay thick over ledgers no one had opened in years. Everett began with the Greyhaven inventories. June searched the restoration records. They worked in silence until she found the same twin crescent symbol she had seen inside the bell. Here. Everett came around the table. The page was faded, but the handwriting remained clear. Private chapel set. Paired moon silver. 1 ceremonial bell. 1 crown piece. June read the line twice. Crown piece. Everett said nothing. Her eyes lifted slowly to the silver-black crown resting on a velvet stand near the far wall. He had removed it before entering the archive. That crown? It has belonged to my family for generations. June looked back at the record. Not all of it. This says the inner silver was reforged 27 years ago. Everett stepped closer. Another note had been written beneath the inventory in smaller script. Paired witnesses may speak beneath the seal. June frowned. What does that mean? I do not know. You are the king. Kings are allowed to not know things. That must be difficult. This time he almost smiled. Then June touched the bell. The sound struck immediately. A woman speaking somewhere close. A child breathing hard. The scrape of something heavy being moved across stone. Then another voice, male, calm. Too calm. June tried to hold on to it. The sound shifted. A door. Footsteps. The woman again. He cannot know. June leaned closer to the bell as though that could make the memory clearer. Pain began behind her eyes. She ignored it. June. Everett's voice sounded far away. The memory pulled harder. A man said something she could not make out. June pressed both hands against the silver. The pain sharpened. Her ears began to ring. June, stop! She tried to answer, but the archive seemed to tilt beneath her. Warmth touched her upper lip. She wiped at it without thinking. Everett reached across the table and lifted the bell out of her hands. The sound vanished. June swayed once, then caught herself against the table. "Give it back." "No. I almost had it." "You almost collapsed." "I am fine." "You are bleeding." She looked at the faint red smear on her fingertips and hated how weak it made her feel. "I can continue." Everett rapped the bell again. "You will not." June stared at him. Every alpha she had known had treated usefulness like a debt. If she could give more, they expected more. Everett had waited most of his life for answers. Now the answer was inches away, and he was choosing to stop. "You have waited 27 years for this," she said. His gaze held hers. "Then I can wait one more night." Something inside June softened before she could stop it. Not trust, not yet, but the beginning of it. Everett turned back to the ledger. "We continue without resonance." June sat down slowly, letting the ringing in her ears fade. Together, they searched the remaining records until late afternoon. Then she found another entry linked to the chapel set. The ink was faint, almost erased. June read it aloud. "Transfer authorization approved by acting archivist Warren Bellamy." Everett went still. June looked at him. "He was there?" "He was royal archivist before he became chancellor." A cold feeling settled over her. She reached for the bell again. Everett caught her wrist gently. "No." "1 second. June. 1. He hesitated, then released her. She touched the silver. The memory came in a broken whisper. A man's voice, older now, but unmistakably controlled. "The child must live. The throne will not answer to anyone outside the bloodline." June pulled her hand away. Everett had gone pale. She did not need to ask whether he recognized the voice. He spoke first. "Bellamy." Everett did not speak for several seconds. The name seemed to change the air around him. Bellamy. June watched the Alpha King stare at the wrapped moon bell, as if the object had become more dangerous simply because the voice inside it belonged to someone he trusted. "He raised me," Everett said at last. His voice was quieter now. "After Greyhaven, Bellamy handled the Regency records. He approved my tutors, my physicians, my household staff." June leaned back in the wooden chair, still waiting for the ringing in her ears to fade. Then he had access to everything. "Yes." Everett looked toward the shelves. "And I never questioned why every person from my early childhood disappeared from court within a few years." June heard the regret beneath the words. Not weakness, regret. "You were 6, she said. "You were supposed to trust the adults around you." His eyes shifted to her. "I remember pieces from before the fire." June stayed silent. He continued. "A blue room, a wooden cradle that should have been too small for me, but I remember hiding beside it. A woman singing near the window." His jaw tightened. "Whenever I asked Bellamy about her, he told me I was confusing a nurse with my mother. Eventually, I stopped asking." June thought of the voice trapped inside the bell, fearful, tender, protective. "You remembered her," June said. "They just taught you not to trust yourself." Everett looked away. The words seemed to land somewhere deeper than she intended. For the first time since she had met him, he did not look like a king carrying a secret. He looked like a son, realizing that someone had taken part of his childhood and renamed it confusion. "There is something else," he said. June's pulse quickened. "The name?" His eyes came back to hers. "You heard one." It was not a question. June had protected that word since the moment the bell gave it to her. At first because she feared being dismissed, then because she feared what it might mean. Now the truth sat between them, waiting. "Yes." Everett took one slow breath. "Tell me." June hesitated. "Are you sure?" "No." His answer surprised her. "Tell me anyway." She looked at the man across from her, not the crown, not the title, the man. "Eli." Everett went completely still. June saw the change immediately. His shoulders locked, his breathing stopped for one beat too long. Then his expression cracked, not dramatically, but enough. "I know that," he whispered. June said nothing. He closed his eyes. Not from a record, not from court. His voice dropped lower. A voice, at night. He opened his eyes again, and they were bright with something he refused to let fall. "She used to say good night, Eli." June felt her throat tighten. She did not call him that again. The name was not hers to use simply because she had discovered it. Everett understood that. She could see it in the way his gaze softened. Then heavy footsteps sounded beyond the archive door. Both of them turned. 3 royal guards entered with a senior court clerk. The clerk looked uncomfortable. "Your Majesty, I have a chancellery warrant." Everett's expression hardened. "For what?" The clerk unfolded the document. "June Callahan is charged with unlawful manipulation of royal memory and high treason against the crown." June rose slowly. That was fast. Everett held out his hand. "Who authorized it?" The clerk swallowed. "Chancellor Bellamy." 2 guards moved toward the table. One carefully lifted the wrapped moon bell and sealed it inside an evidence case. June's stomach dropped. Everett stepped forward. "She remains under my authority." "The warrant requires a public hearing at first light," the clerk said. "The Chancellor has already summoned witnesses." June looked at Everett. Bellamy had not waited to learn what they knew. He had moved because he was afraid of what they might discover next. As the guards escorted June from the archive, she glanced back once. Everett stood beneath the dim lamps, staring at the empty place where the bell had been. Then he looked at the crown on its velvet stand, and June realized Bellamy had made one mistake. He had taken the bell into court, but the other half of the mystery was already waiting there. By first light, the royal court was already full. June stood at the center of the great hall with silver restraints around her wrists and the moon bell sealed inside a clear evidence case on a long table nearby. The pale crescent lines of the moon seal curved beneath her boots. She had seen that symbol before, in the archive. Paired witnesses may speak beneath the seal. The words returned to her now, but their meaning still felt just out of reach. Chancellor Warren Bellamy stood beside the council table, calm and perfectly dressed, as if he had spent the night preparing for a ceremony instead of a trial. Everett sat on the throne at the north end of the hall. The crown rested on his head. He looked composed, too composed. June understood why. If he defended her before the evidence could speak for itself, Bellamy would call it proof that she had manipulated him. So Everett did nothing. Not yet. "June Callahan," Bellamy said, turning toward the gathered nobles, "has claimed that old objects speak to her. She has used these claims to introduce false memories into the mind of the crown." A murmur moved through the room. June kept her face still. Bellamy continued. "Her history is not difficult to verify." The side doors opened. Mason Pike entered. For one painful second, June felt 25 again, standing at the rejection stone while people watched him choose ambition over her. Mason stopped several feet away and avoided her eyes. Bellamy asked him about her resonance. Mason answered carefully. "June has heard voices for years." "Voices no one else could hear?" "Yes." "Did that concern you?" Mason hesitated. "Yes." June felt the humiliation settle over the court exactly as Bellamy intended. Not loud, not cruel. Worse, reasonable. She was not being called dangerous. She was being called unreliable. Bellamy looked toward Everett. "Your Majesty, this is what I feared. A vulnerable mind has mistaken grief for truth and brought those mistakes into matters of the crown." Everett's expression did not change. "Are you finished?" Bellamy paused. "I am asking you to protect the throne." "Then present evidence." A flicker of irritation crossed Bellamy's face. He gestured toward the moon bell. "There is the object she used." Everett rose. The hall quieted instantly. He descended from the throne. removed the crown, and carried it in both hands toward the center of the room. June watched Bellamy's confidence weaken one small degree at a time. Everett stopped in front of her and placed the crown on the evidence table beside the bell. "You claim she invents memories," he said. "Then let the crown remember for itself." Bellamy's face tightened. "Your Majesty, that phrase is symbolic." June looked down at the crescent lines under her feet, the note from the archive, paired witnesses, the seal. Her pulse jumped. "Open the case," she said. Bellamy turned sharply. "No." Everett looked at the court clerk. "Open it." The clerk obeyed. June touched the moon bell with one hand. Nothing changed except the familiar pressure behind her eyes. Then Everett placed the crown inside the outer curve of the moon seal. The silver lines beneath them seemed to catch the morning light. June understood. "The crown piece," she whispered. Everett looked at her. "Same silver." Bellamy stepped forward. "This proceeding is over." Everett did not move. "No, now it begins." June set the bell inside the opposite crescent. The instant both pieces touched the seal, a low ringing passed through the floor. Not loud, deep. The entire court heard it. Gasps moved through the gallery. Bellamy went pale. June closed her eyes. The woman's voice returned, clearer than ever. "Fear, smoke, a child trying not to cry." June opened her eyes and looked directly at Everett. He was watching her, waiting. She gave him the one word that had survived every erased page, every changed record, every year of silence. Eli. The name had barely left June's mouth when Everett rose so fast the court seemed to flinch with him. For one heartbeat, nothing moved. Then the moon seal beneath June's feet gave off a low silver glow, and the sound inside the bell changed. It was no longer trapped inside her head. Everyone heard it. A woman's voice filled the hall, tired, frightened, clear. "Eli, stay close to me." Everett stopped breathing. June watched his face as recognition moved through it. Not confusion, memory. Bellamy stepped away from the council table. "This is impossible," the voice continued. Queen Evelyn. June knew it before anyone said her name. There was a steadiness beneath the fear now. "Warren, Adrian knows what you did with the war funds. The records are already copied." A stunned murmur spread through the court. Bellamy's face lost its color. Another voice answered from the memory. His voice, younger but unmistakable. "You should have left this alone." Everett stared at him. Bellamy looked toward the doors, then back at the seal. The sound shifted again. Footsteps, a door closing, Evelyn speaking quickly to a child. "Whatever happens tonight, you remember who you are." Then softer, "You are my Eli." Everett lowered his head for a moment. June felt the pressure behind her eyes sharpen, but she held her hand against the bell. She could not stop now. The memory moved forward in broken pieces. King Adrian confronting Bellamy over missing funds. Evelyn ordering servants to take Everett away. Bellamy insisting the boy had to survive because the crown pact would collapse without Hale blood on the throne. Then another fragment. Bellamy speaking to someone June could not identify. "Replace the household. Remove the portraits. The child will remember what we teach him to remember." The entire court went silent. No one whispered now. No one laughed at June. Mason stood near the witness rail with his face turned toward the floor. Everett looked at Bellamy with a calm that felt more powerful than anger. "You told me my memories were illness." Bellamy's mouth opened, but nothing came out. "You told me my mother was a nurse I had confused with family." Everett took one slow step toward him. "You made me doubt the only parts of her I had left." Bellamy finally found his voice. "I preserved the kingdom. You preserved yourself." Everett's answer was quiet. Bellamy glanced toward the moon seal as if searching for some way to silence it, but the royal guards had already moved between him and the evidence. No one touched him roughly. They simply closed the space around him. Everett did not look away. "My mother gave me that name." His voice lowered. You do not get to erase her twice. The guards escorted Bellamy from the hall. Only after the doors closed did June realize how badly her hands were shaking. The silver light under the seal faded. The voices stopped. Her hearing blurred at the edges, and she swayed. Everett reached her before she could lose her balance. He steadied her, then immediately let go when he saw she could stand. No claim, no command, just care. He turned to the court clerk. Remove the restraints. The silver cuffs came free. June rubbed her wrists, suddenly unsure what to do with her hands. Everett looked at her in front of everyone who had called her unstable, desperate, and unworthy. June Callahan, he said. What do you want? She looked at Mason, at the nobles, at the bell that had carried a dead woman's truth across 27 years. Then she looked back at the king. My life back. Everett nodded once. Then it is yours. And in that moment, June understood something that frightened her more than the trial ever had. The king had finally found the truth about who he used to be. Now both of them would have to decide who they wanted to become. 6 weeks later, June stood in the restored West Gallery of the Crown Citadel and watched workers carry sealed archive boxes past the windows. Bellamy had been convicted after the court compared the Moon Seal testimony with surviving financial records, regency orders, and altered Greyhaven inventories. The truth had not depended on one memory alone. That mattered to June. For the first time in years, people were not asking whether she imagined what she heard. They were asking how to preserve it. Mason Pike found her before noon. He looked different without the confidence he had worn at the rejection stone. Smaller, somehow. June, he said, I owe you an apology. She waited. I thought your gift would ruin my future. His eyes dropped. I was wrong. You were, she said. Mason swallowed. If I could take it back, I would. June studied the man she had once believed destiny had chosen for her. The old ache was gone. You were free to choose your future, she said. So am I. She walked away without anger. That surprised her most. 3 months after the trial, Everett signed a reform ending the law that barred rejected or unmated omegas from certified crown positions without alpha sponsorship. Some nobles protested. Everett listened. Then he signed it anyway. June was offered the title of Royal Archivist. She refused it. I do not want a position created because the court feels guilty, she told him. Everett leaned back in his chair. What do you want? A royal resonance archive, proper testing, protected relics, clear rules for evidence. No one should be able to destroy history because they do not like what it remembers. Everett considered her proposal for less than a minute. Write the budget. June blinked. That is all? You are right. I do not require a ceremony before admitting it. 6 months after the trial, the first memorial wing at Greyhaven opened under a clear autumn sky. The burned moon bell rested behind protective glass in the new archive. Everett still wore the crown for public ceremonies, but he no longer treated it like proof of who he was. June had watched that change slowly, over months. Quiet dinners after long workdays, walks through the rebuilding grounds, arguments about policy, silences that no longer needed to be filled. He never used rank to pull her closer. He never asked her to become smaller so he could feel larger. That evening, after the guest had gone, June found him alone before the restored portrait of Queen Evelyn Hale. Everett was not wearing the crown. She looks like you, June said. I was told she did not. They were wrong about many things. He smiled faintly. Then June's wolf stirred, not with fear, not with pain, with recognition. Everett felt it too. His eyes lifted to hers. The air between them changed, warm and unmistakable. Mate. Neither moved. Everett spoke first. You do not owe destiny anything. June's throat tightened. Is that your way of saying you do not want this? No. His answer came without hesitation. It is my way of saying I will not choose for you. June stepped closer. Good. Good. Because I already chose. She held out her hand. Everett looked at it, then at her, and finally took it. The bond settled between them gently, not like a command, but like a door opening. Months later, June became Luna, without giving up the archive she had built. Greyhaven became a place where erased stories were restored, not buried. One quiet night, she stood beside Everett beneath the memorial lights and said softly, "Eli." He turned. This time he did not freeze. He smiled. "Only you." And maybe that is the heart of this story. Real strength does not silence people. It gives them room to speak, choose, and become who they are. I think June was strongest when she stopped asking others to define her worth. What do you think? Share your view below and subscribe for more stories like this.